Hey guys, Scripted here with another video, and I got a comment on a fairly recent video, when I was talking about, I think it was some of the nonsense as it pertains to how Kylo Ren took out Luke's temple and all the kids and all that other stuff, and how it didn't make sense, and he's doing like storm powers from X-Men and all this nonsense. It's so insane what they've done. But this comment was really astute because it was talking about the Acolyte. And a lot of people focus on Ki-Adi-Mundi, and a lot of people focus on the lore breaking when it came to whether or not Jedi knew there were Sith and all these other things that really ruin a lot of the things in the prequels. And then, of course, there was the big one that really made people mad where they made the twins using the Force or whatever. They called it the Thread and the Witches. And a lot of people took that as a shot at Anakin, being the chosen one, that he was the only one conceived by the Force. Personally, I thought it was so silly and so stupid that it didn't even bother me, because I'm like, this is just so over-the-top, nonsensical, and dumb. But there is another thing that I don't think a lot of people talked about, or it was overlooked simply because of some of those other egregious, and there are more, of course, egregiously silly things. One other thing was, of course, when I think it's Osha at that point, turns her lightsaber red and the crystal's touching her hand and it's ignited and it should have blown her arm off. All these silly things, right? So this one kind of got, I think, overlooked because there's so much there. I really think if a guy actually sat down and watched it again, which I will not do because it's awful, and I'm not putting myself through that, I think there'd be even more stuff. But this is interesting because there's a point where Gimp Mask, whatever his name is, Khmer. So basically, the Gimp Mask guy mind wiped the bad sister so that Osha could be his apprentice or whatever, be his underling. And then he mind wiped May so that the Jedi couldn't track them or something like that. And that was sort of like the exchange he made for allowing Osha to go with him. And it was a really weird, convoluted scene. It didn't really make any sense. It's like, why did you even need to do this? But whatever. Like, the Jedi know you're there anyway. They're just covering it up. So the whole thing was just super silly. So I'm going to mind wipe her so that the Jedi can't track anything or know anything, except I literally exposed myself to the Jedi and fought them and everything and killed them all. And then Vernestra saw it all in a vision and could hear it all. And yet we're supposed to believe from Acolyte fans or people, Disney apologists, that the Jedi didn't really know, they didn't really know what happened. Of course they did. You guys are silly. So definitely wrecks the Phantom Menace. But anyways, doesn't matter. No Sith for 1,000 years, but now there is. So he mind wipes her, and then, but what's crazy to think about here is this is like a force power. This is an ability that this guy has. And then in the final episode, you see Darth Plagueis. And so this guy is learning this stuff from Darth Plagueis. And Darth Plagueis was also Palpatine's master. And so when you factor that in, it's like, okay, so they can do these mind wipe things. So why was that never used again? Wouldn't that have been like really, really beneficial? Right? Like, as much as Palpatine did all his manipulating and did all this stuff, wouldn't it have been like really, really beneficial to use that at some point on somebody? And nobody ever did? Just this Khmer guy? Palpatine never used it in any context for anything? I find that a little weird. I feel like there would be certainly times when that would have been extremely beneficial. Even if you could make the argument that Palpatine didn't need to do it. He accomplished what he wanted to accomplish without doing it. When you put it in a prequel that is so closely related to him, and then you don't see it get used ever again, and not written into the story in the later parts, in the later episodes, whatever, it just makes you wonder. It's like, why, if this was a thing, this needed to be a thing. It's kind of like R2 using his little jet things in Attack of the Clones, but he never used them in the OT, when there were surely opportunities that would have been a good idea. it's the same kind of thing. It's not that necessarily he had to use them, but it's like, why wouldn't he? If he can do stuff like that, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he have just wiped Luke's mind? Make him forget all the things that the Jedi taught him. Like when he's in the throne room in Jedi, right? Like that would be the prime opportunity. Of all the opportunities, that would be the prime opportunity. Why wouldn't he use it? Then you don't even have to bother with all this stuff. I think it would be extremely simple to just wipe his mind. When he's fighting Mace Windu, he could just clear his mind. Why even take the risk of dealing with him the way that he did? Because if you just clear his mind or wipe his mind, then nobody can do anything. And what would the Jedi think if he had? Oh, well, something happened to Mace Windu. What was it? Well, we're not really sure, but he can't remember anything. He's got amnesia, whatever. But even if he wasn't ever going to use it again, it just makes it awkward and weird because you think of those opportunities. And this is another just stupid lore-breaking thing. You can't add in all these force powers before other instances when they would have made sense for them to be used. I would make the same argument for the little speed thing that George put in The Phantom Menace. There were many opportunities where that would have been really beneficial for the Jedi, even in The Phantom Menace. Like, Obi-Wan could have used it to go through the barriers as soon as they opened rather than getting stuck in them. And that's why don't overdo it. Don't add all these things, especially in a prequel. It's bad enough that Rey can do all this crap. Maybe it's even worse. But don't add all these crazy things in a prequel that is tightly aligned. It's one thing if you get a little bit over the top with something like Knights of the Old Republic, something that took place way in the past, and there's a whole bunch of storyline after that that kind of contains those things over time, because things change, over a longer period of time. But over this instance where you're really essentially you're basically, Palpatine's life is starting shortly thereafter, and he's being trained by the same guy. You can't do that. It just screws with people's minds. And again, my mind never even thought of this at the time because there was so much other junk in the Acolyte to try and deal with, and your brain is melting as it is. And so this is just yet another thing. Let's revisit the Acolyte and look at more totally stupid things they put in from this supposed hardcore Star Wars fan that apparently made stop motion little videos with her supposed Star Wars action figures when she was a kid. And yet does these things, and this is just another nonsensical thing. So, anyways, guys, you know what? It's kind of nice to, bash the Acolyte. It's been a long time. Let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Always helps the channel. Feel free to check anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.